Hey, it's day 3 in our 8-day journey where we're looking at the big events mainly in Genesis. And today we come to that event that we're all familiar with, we call the flood. Now there's a lot about the flood that built up or led up to it that you may or may not be familiar with. If you're around me much, you're probably familiar with at least part of it. But the flood was not so much a punishment, which is usually the way that it's looked upon, as it was an emergency procedure by God to literally see to it that the human race survived. So let me read you the basic background in Genesis chapter 6, and it starts out in verse 1. It says, "When men began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God." By the way, in the Old Testament, that sons of God term, it is only used of angels. It is never used of humans in the entire Old Testament. So once again it says, "When men began to increase in number on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God," think angels, "saw the daughters of men," notice the distinction, sons of God, daughters of men, "that they were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose." And the Lord, by the way, that the language in the Hebrew there, it just means literally they took any of them physically that they chose. They took them in a wifely-like way, meaning that they had sexual relationships with him. Then the Lord said, "My spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. His days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God, angels, went to the daughters of men and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown." Think Greek mythology, these titans, these half human, half deity beings, but they were really half angelic. Now look at what the result was. So here's these Nephilim, this hybrid race, half angel, half human, spreading all over the earth. We learn later on that they were gigantic and very evil. Verse 5. "The Lord saw how great man's wickedness on earth had become, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. The Lord," get this, says the Lord was grieved that he had made man on earth, and his heart was filled with pain. This is a side of God that we have a hard time understanding. We feel like he's almighty and detached and nothing can bother him, but he is the most vulnerable person in the universe of necessity. The most sensitive is always the most vulnerable. The most loving is always the most vulnerable. The Lord was grieved that he had made man on the earth. And his heart was filled with pain. So the Lord said, "I will wipe mankind whom I have created from the face of the earth, men and animals and creatures that move along the ground." By the way, there might be an interesting reason for that I don't have time to get into now, but it had to do with the Nephilim. "And the birds of the air, for I am grieved that I have made them." But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. And you pretty much probably know the story in some degree after that. So the main truth that I want to get across is that usually this is depicted as sort of a God's angry kind of a thing, and he's going to punish everybody and everything. The reality is, when you read the next verse, and I will read it, it says Noah was a righteous man and blameless among the people of his time, and he walked with God. Now that blameless there, I'm not saying dogmatically, but it could be referring to the fact that he was still genetically pure. This hybridization, I have a hard time saying that word, it had evidently spread so extensive that it was becoming harder and harder to find a pure human, meaning that they were intermingled with angelic DNA along with human DNA, hence the Nephilim. And of course then you had generations from them. The first would have been half angel, half human, but then the next one would have been a little less, but nevertheless still contaminated. So in my opinion, what is happening here is God is seeking to rescue humanity genetically and spiritually simultaneous. The flood, you saw it, it grieved God. It grieved God that the earth was full of violence and evil. And this was an emergency measure because he starts over with Noah and his family. You'll see that he gives the same instructions: be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and so forth. So the next time you hear about the flood, I hope you will think about it in a different way. By the way, if you want to learn more about this hybridization or the Nephilim, watch a show on the Discovery Channel. I urge all Christians to do this, called ancient astronauts. Anytime you can watch this, you can learn the backstory of what was going on here and how prevalent it was all over the earth. We find these megalithic structures all over the earth that we couldn't even build today with modern equipment. Who put these things together? Who lifted these mega structures to put them in place? Anyway, this Genesis flood story is fascinating on so many levels, and I hope that you'll look at it again with a totally different light. Thank you.